Hi all, it's really sunny day today, and as you can see the snow has melted, hence it's really dirty now, so I can't really go for my walking practice and Yangsheng baguazhang neigong as well. So instead of going for the next form, explaining how the next form within the entire form set is actually working, I think it's really good time now to give sort of an in-depth instructions in regards to the opening and closing exercises that I'm doing before my Bhagavad practice and after it. And although these exercises are not really specific to Bhagavajan, so they can be done before literally almost any Qigong practice in general. So the set of exercises is known as shogun, and it's a very wide term, and it's not really that important just to translate that from Chinese. It's really, if you translate it, something like gathering chi. So the idea is before you start practicing, you need to get into one. So literally, uh, um, concentrate in your center by relaxation, which is sounds like a paradox, but that's essentially what we need to do. And all apart from just gathering the energy, this also shogun is about like purifying yourself. When if you think of yourself as the bank of water, the idea is you just like fill this bank of water with new fresh water, and then you just drain the water downwards so that you just purify this sort of bank by filling the water in and draining it out. So in this video in particular, let's have a look how this practice can actually be done. So I've just made two essential exercises, and although they look really similar, and you could probably not even see the difference between these two exercises, the difference is quite significant. And although generally the matter of form is really important, and it's really hard to overemphasize, to over-evaluate uh, the importance of form when you're doing some Qigong practice. Here, in particular, specifically the understanding of what the form is actually doing is really important. So I would rather go for some attempts to explain what happens internally in a extremely simplified manner to make it like as simple as possible to understand. Because really, ultimately, this is all about like just doing this, practicing, and by the time you're practicing, the understanding is the product that you are getting in return. It just pays off in the form of understanding later. But anyway, so the first form the idea behind the first form is to purify your own self. So just like I've been mentioning already, you can think of your entire body as the bank of water. So you just think of it as an absolutely empty bank first. So, well, obviously there are lots of important principles like how to stand. Like you need to like stand the shoulder with the pod, like your feet. The shoulders should be relaxed. The top of the head is hanging like there is an invisible thread that connects you to the heaven. A whole lot of principles, and that definitely is really important to consider, and you really need to bear that in mind to practice that, because otherwise it's not going to be Qigong really, but someone else. But we'll probably touch those aspects and principles in the later videos. So today I don't really want your attention to be widespread into a whole lot of principles that are extremely difficult to maintain in the meantime. So let's just think of the body as the empty bank of water first. And like, how would you try to fill this bank of water with the water? So if you say like you can open it like this here, and then you can just fill the water in, and then it would be like by the time the water goes, so it would be like this level, then it just goes fills up, fills up, fills up, fills up, fills up, yeah, fills up, fills up, fills up, and then finally it just goes up to very here, and then if you keep like pouring the water, it would just go outside and would be like I would be like a fontaine, right? But that's sort of a passive way to fill the bank of water with the actual water. So the way how this sort of process is happening within this particular exercise can be thought a little bit different. So you just on your feet, there are 2 points. So here and also here. So on the hands, these points are called neigong. On the feet, they are called Yangsheng. So Yangsheng is the translation for, I'm not quite sure how to say that in English properly, when you have this source of water like going from the ground, like natural source of water just going from the ground. So that's the translation of the Yangsheng. Let me know in the commentaries how that is called in English, please, if you know. So those 2 points are sort of an entry gate. So you're filling this bank of water not from the top of the head, which is also possible, but it's not on the cards in this particular exercise. But instead you have 2 holes, like one here, another is right over in here. And you just imagine that you have 2 invisible pipes that are going somewhere underground, and that invisible pipe just gets connected to your foot here and here. So, and then you just turn on the water like this, and the water starts filling your body, your bank of water from here, and the water goes like this. So through this particular point, so the water just starts filling, so it just goes like, and this, to make this process even a bit more effective, you just imagine that you have pumps in your legs, so that in order to make it like better circulating, the pump is starting to work, and the pump is starting to suck that water from the ground. So this is something similar to what the tree does, but not the mechanical but the natural way of doing things. So this sort of pump starts sucking the water from the ground right into this bank of water into your body, and it just like fills it up until it gets filled, like until the water comes. Like the water first is here, then the level is growing. It goes here, here, here. Then it's growing, and once it comes to the top of the head, that's the end of the process of filling up. And then we're supposed to be doing the opposite process, which is to drain the water, right? So again, like this actually happens naturally, but we have a sort of pumps in our legs. So that's known as to put the roots into the ground. That's the principle being introduced in Tai Chi. Also, not only in specific to Qigong in general. So you just think of this exercise. So this very first, like, I'm not doing the hand movements actually. Yeah. So although I do the hand movements, but it's not the essence. The essence is, so what I do, I just like start sucking this water from the ground, and these pipes like filling the water into the bank, which are my legs. So water goes like this, goes like this, goes like this, goes like this, filling up with the water, filling up. And now, again, like when I move hands to the sides, it actually increases this internal pump. So it's not only in the legs, it's just the pump is actually here in the center. It's really hard to explain because it's really hard to explain. That's why they just say you just do the form and just do this 10 years and you will understand how this works. That's the way I did. So I actually recommend going that way in particular as well. But unfortunately, our consciousness sometimes not agree to things that it doesn't understand, hence this weird explanation. But anyway, so once this water, the level of water has reached our waist here, so then by like widespread in the hands, actually the idea is not to widespread the hands, but just to suck this flow water even higher. So like with water, with the actual water, in order to make it higher, the higher it gets, the more pump power you need to use. So the pump is like getting bigger, the amplitude, the magnitude of this pump is going like bigger. So pump is doing something like this, right? So you just like doing this motion to sort of suck this water even higher, and then you're just doing this even higher, even higher, even higher. And at this particular point, when the hands are rising, that like it comes to the very top of the head. The level of water comes to the top of the head when the hands are right over in here. So this is quite important. So again, so in order to start this process, so we first like going down, relaxing, like literally opening up these two pipes, so opening up these two pipes, and then the water starts flowing in through the legs, and then to the waist, my dantian, then higher to the heart, and comes to the top of my head. And starting from this point, where like the highest point here, that's the pivot point where the process of filling up with water has to be changed to the opposite one, which is draining the water. So to drain the water, you just imagine that you release the pump power, so the pump is no longer working. And on the other hand, down below here, you remember you have two holes here, so you just open them up, and all the water that is available, like within your body, it just starts draining down. So that's how it's working. I'm not talking about the physical aspect of this because you need some holes that the air should be going to make this process actually possible. But it's not about the literal understanding, just the metaphorical one, just conceptual one instead. So once we filled up our body, like from down below, and filling this bank of water, filling, and then we just start drain, and it starts draining from the top. So it drains like from here, and then it just drains up like to the shoulders, and then it drains more. It drains to dantian, and then it drains more. It drains to the knees, to the hips, to the knees, and then it drains even more. Although I'm not moving physically, but it keeps draining like down there to the very ground, and eventually it has drained completely. And once it drained completely, we can start a new cycle. So again, like the pump is turned on, and we're sucking the water, sucking this, pulling up, and up until it goes to top of the head, and then again we're just draining the water, draining, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I just do this couple more times because it's really hard to talk about this and actually do this, because it's really easier to sort of do this and feel this rather than to explain this for me. So the general idea is I fill myself with a new fresh water. So this bank of water, which is my body, it gets filled with new fresh water, and then the old water, so once it gets filled, the new water becomes the old one, it gets drained, literally purifying the bank from within. That sort of thing. So you just fill it in the water, and there is some sort of, I don't know, dust inside or some impurities, so the water absorbs them, and then we just drain the water. So if we want to clean up the bank of water which is dirty from within, we need to do the following. We need to like fill it up with water and then drain the water, and do this several times, right? So that's how we can actually purify the bank of water. And here the same idea works with our body. And again, so this exercise is known as for internal organs cleansing, like many other sophisticated to understand concepts. But practically, if you just bear in mind this simple principle of just filling in the water, the new fresh water, and just draining the old water that is now like sort of a stink water. Yeah, so just removing the sink water, so it just gets into, starts being the sink water after you fill this, because there's all the shitty crap inside. We just imagine that, like, it's not imagine, it's there actually. So just removing the stink water down below like this, and then again like filling up with the new fresh water, and then just removing the old one. Now we just try to explain this exact principle, but from more or less traditional Chinese perspective. This has been described the following way. So we are filling ourselves with something known as the heavenly qi, and then we let it drain again, or sink or drain to the ground. So literally, there are two major powers. So the gravity goes from top to bottom, and according to the third law of Isaac Newton, there is the opposite power, the power opposite to gravity, which goes from the ground and up back to the heaven, which practically means that the power of how likely do I push the ground when I stand, it's exactly the same amount of power the ground is pushing me back. And these powers can be drawn as vectors. So the idea behind this exercise is to fill this vector internally. So the vector that goes from the ground and up to infinitely to the heaven. So this vector has the starting point, and then this arrow, right? So I'm feeling how this vector is growing, and I'm just following this vector, just fill this from within. And then the opposite, so the vector starts in here on the top of the head, the point starts here, and the arrow goes down. So here, when I go down, I follow the gravity. When I go up, when I rise, so this is really good to call as rising. It's not lifting the head. So there is a big difference between when you lift something or when you rise. So what's the difference? So if you lift something, you go into the tension, so the shoulders are getting tense, and that's something to avoid at any cost, because in Qigong you need to have the relaxed shoulders, you need to drop down the elbows, a whole lot of principles. But if you're trying to think about these principles, you usually ended up with absolutely the opposite to what you actually need to achieve. You're getting extremely tense, both physically and mentally. So in order to avoid that, it's really better to trust your internal feelings. So when you just stand, you can sort of feel your weight. So you weight something, right? And if you just let this weight flow down, So this is the matter of connecting with the gravity. But then when it gets to the lowest part, it then starts the opposite motion in the opposite direction, and this results in rising. So rising is not lifting. So these two terms, these two verbs, are really different. So like rising is something that happens from within. It just I'm not separating myself from the body, but if I lift something, I sort of use the body as the leverage, since I need to separate myself from the body, so the mind gets separated, and it starts observing the body as envisioning some sort of a picture, some sort of a mental understanding, which like brings up the philosophy, religion, whatever. But that's not natural approach, right? So if you just instead, if you go for relaxation, let things go, you like connecting the energy, the mind and the body are getting connected all together. And in this case, the natural powers like the gravity going down and this opposite power, opposite force going up, you just start feeling them, and you can just ride these flows, ride these forces back and forth, up and down. So you're just flowing along with the power that goes from the ground to the heaven, and then you just rolling down on this power, that the gravity that goes from top to bottom. So that's another understanding, that's another way to explain this exact exercise. And then you can even think of combining these two into one. So on the one hand, you sort of thinking about filling yourself as if you were a bank of water, and you're just filling yourself. And when this process is actually happening, this in particular, indeed, something that helps you to rise, because when the water is filling you, it's not lifting. You can't lift the water. It's rather like sucking the water in, like pulling it in. So that's the internal process that is absolutely opposite to lifting, and this can be described as rising. So if I'm just a dummy like this, like the tap ribbon dummy, and then the water gets like filling me in, then I would be like this, like the end. So like I would be like filled in with the water. Like there is some advertisement pieces, like figures for like advertising something. There is no water there, but there is a pump which pushes the air. So it's like a balloon. It's like a balloon. So if you are a balloon, then first you are not like, you're just small, right? But then the air starts like pushing the air to the balloon, and the balloon is getting thicker. And if there is the helium inside that balloon, it would eventually like just fly to the heaven. So this is another sort of way to how you can actually imagine this. And finally, last but not least, explanation. So how would you would have been taught this form in case if you've been taught by Chinese teachers who don't speak English quite at all, most cases. So, and if you're not sort of capable of using words to express what you're actually trying to say, in that case, that's just the matter of describing where the hands are going. So, what happens? So, from this perspective, this looks the following way. So, we just stand, we relax, the shoulders should just be relaxed, elbows slightly like drop down, and then we just slightly bending our knees, so that to make sure that the projection of the knees is not going beyond the toes. So I can't do like this because this results in big tension in the knees, which should be avoided. So I just sit down a little bit, and by the time I'm sitting down, my elbows drop. So I'm bending the knees, I'm sitting down, and I'm dropping my elbows like this. Dropping the elbows results my hands like going slightly a bit like this. So it's not really that hard, but just try to like emphasize this to make it visible. So slightly bending the knees, the elbows drop down, and then in order to start uprising, so the force within my knees goes like outwards, and also as well as in my hands. So I just do like this, and then so first I was like emphasizing the knees and the elbows to go down. If I do this really a lot, I will end up sitting down like this. So I will just sit down eventually. Yeah. So in order to uprise, so you can try a simple trick. So if you just go down and you start falling, and then you just like stand up. So it's a very simple trick. So if you just so you just sit down. So to sit down, you need to bend your knees and to drop the elbows. Because if you don't drop the elbows, you start falling back. Or if you don't bend the knees, you just end up bending your entire body, not sitting down. So to sit down, I really need to have some space to sit down. So dropping the elbows. So actually, elbows and knees are getting connected. Now to sort of stand. So I just start falling back, and then I instantly get up. So this is quite a natural process. So you don't have to fall back in order to do this, but that's sort of an effort, the internal effort that you need to consider to take in order to make this form actually working. So I'm just bending the knees, sitting down a little bit, dropping the elbows, and then I'm sort of pushing so my feet sort of like pushing to the ground, and my hands are going widespread. It just so one power goes like this, another power goes like this. So this is what I do. So the forms are just to like what I call the monkey see, monkey do principle. So you just watch it, and then you just try to mimic that. So the way I personally learn, so I just watch how the form is done, and then I just mimic that, copy that, and essentially I had no idea about this internal mechanics behind the form. So all I was doing just this particular exercise, just to like. So when you're going up, like the legs like get stretched at some point, also the hands that get stretched at some point, and when you're going down, so it's about like again relaxing the shoulders, bending the knees, but not much, and also dropping the elbows. So in order to go down, you use the knees and the elbows, right, like this. In order to go up, you use the feet and the hands, and also the top of the head is helping to connect to heaven. And here, when you're going down, you use dropping down the elbows, bending the knees, and the bottom of the spine. Like if you just like take some weight to the back of the spine, to the bottom of your spine, and you just like imagine it hands here, like big weight. So this big weight just brings you down, right? And here on the contrary. So here we have the hands, we have the feet, and the top of the head. And here we have elbows, knees, and the bottom of the spine, so it goes down. So these were the three principles of how to actually explain this opening exercise. So this was the first one, and now let's get to the second one, which is really opposite in its internal meaning. So the idea behind the second exercise is not to purify yourself, but to make, let's say, we are already being like our bank of water has been filled with water, but maybe I don't know, probably water is not really, let's say it's been filled up with gas, yeah, and gas is not like is not solid. It's just like you can blow it away and it just goes away. So gas is not solid, it's just everywhere. But if you start condensing the gas, like trying to make it smaller, so you had this big amount of gas, right, like the oxygen, so you can breathe the oxygen, but you can also like try to concentrate it really a lot, and then this whole lot of oxygens turns into this little like liquid oxygen. So it starts being like you can drink it. Probably shouldn't do this, but anyway. So when you have gas, so when you widespread, you have gas. When you condense, this gas turns into a liquid. So the idea behind this exercise is sort of trying to make this gas being condensed and turn it into a liquid. So I'm gathering this gas, and then I'm just concentrating this gas in my lower abdomen, known as dantian. So there are two parts from where this process is going. So from the upper side, which is usually the only one to take care of, but people usually forget about that. Exactly the same process is actually happening in the lower part. So, like when I sit down, in this case, I'm not draining like I've been doing before, but instead when I sit down, I sort of do this motion, but I do this by my legs internally. So I sort of doing like this. So we have gas, and here we have the liquid. Again, we have the gas, and here we have the liquid. We have the gas, we have the liquid. We have the gas, we have the liquid. Gas, liquid, gas, liquid. So just stretch into not only to the sides but also down there and there. So literally widespread. So this first motion allows to widespread everywhere, like to the sides, to the heaven and to the earth. So 4 directions, literally 4 directions. And then this movement allows to gather this gas from all of the 4 directions into the single center. And once it gets condensed there, it sort of turns into a liquid. And this liquid is that sort of a treasure that Taoists believe allows you to become an immortal. It's really arguable what do they mean by saying that, but it doesn't matter in terms of process. The technology is working no matter what the goal is and how in particular it's supposed to be used later. So I'm just talking about the technology, the pure technology now. So what essentially this movement does. So essentially it just gathers this gas from everywhere and condenses this gas, and once this gas gets condensed, it turns into a liquid. So it gets solid at some point, just sort of gets solid. So just do this for a while. Another little exercise that is exactly the same in both in the first form and in the second one is gathering this gas and condensing it, not from the eternity everywhere, but just this local horizontal circle. So you just gathering it from back and forth, and then just sort of sucking in. So you have a belly, yeah. So you sort of sucking in. It's not like this. You don't have to raise the shoulders, obviously, but just to show you this. So here you just pulling this in, then just relax. So it just naturally goes back, and then you just do a bit up, down, until you find the balance. Once you found the balance, you feel like standing very still after. So you just stand still, and there is no motion, or motion is going from everywhere to everywhere simultaneously, which is essentially the same thing from the internal feelings perspective of pluralist. And then you just now this sort of liquid. So we started with the gas, and then we ended up with a liquid. So the liquid is here. So this liquid, now you let this liquid flow through the entire body. So it's like a shower, but normally shower goes from head down to shoulders and down to legs. So you just imagine the shower that starts in your belly, and the water, it just flows from here upside, from here it goes like this, so it drops to here, hands, and to the legs as well. So it's like the shower but from within. So you just concentrate, release, bit like up, down, up, down. Someone called it breathing. I don't quite consider this to be breathing in terms of it's not breathing. It's just like another pump with your lungs, which doesn't quite make sense. So it's sort of like looking for a balance. Once you found the balance, you just stand still for a while, and then this internal shower, you just like widespreads the water, like if that was nice water from the shower, like warm water, it just widespreads everywhere to the hands, to feet, to the lower back, to everywhere, literally everywhere, exactly the same amount. So it's the essence of balance, basically. The essence of balance. So again, and then we just release everything. And with this calm feeling inside, we can go to the outer world. And if we manage to keep it, not losing it, this allows us to live a better life. So that's it from my side. Thanks for watching and cheers.